fly fishing while I was in college. I had a buddy named Andy who he'd grown up in the Atlanta area and near this great fly shop in the Alpharetta area, and had just had access to this river called the Chattahoochee. And so while we were in college in Milledgeville, there was this like nasty river called the Oconee River, and there were a bunch of gar and brim and bass and stuff in that. And so he took me one day, and yeah, I mean, I've been tailing loops ever since. No, I'm just kidding. I caught a bunch of trees that day. It was awful, but like it was an incredible thing shifted inside of me, though. There was just something about being in the water, not on top of the water, you know, like, but like actually stepping into the water. And we were wet wading. It wasn't like, you know, I was wearing waders and it was all this fun stuff. It was a Cabela's rod, a very basic setup, but still there was something that shifted in me, like, yep, this is my sport. This is good stuff. Fly fishing at its core, to me, is about being immersed in nature. It's about getting away for some solitude, but also enjoying nature in this place that is beautiful. More than anything, I get to go into these mountain regions and these areas that like are remote-ish and get away from the distractions that keep me kind of at bay in the real world, if you will. And so fly fishing is an escape. Yeah, holy yeah. Is this Abruzza? Yeah. Big one. No, it's a cutty. No, he's a nice boat. Do you really? I got a big one. Oh! Dude, we just doubled up! Get it up, get it up, get it up, go, down, down. Holy brown! Woo! Double up! Holy brown!
Started fly fishing halfway through high school after my sophomore year. Moved over to East Tennessee, and my parents got me a guide first time I ever went, and made me halfway believe that I could catch fish. And I got my first like rod and reel set up fly fishing that Christmas, and tried to start figuring it out on my own, and found out that I had a lot to learn, but I enjoyed the challenge and enjoyed just being outside in creation and being out. You know, fly fishing is kind of like hiking and hunting together. You're hiking around a river, trying to hunt down these trout, and it's just a lot of movement, and it fit my personality, and fit the things that I was already passionate about. So I fell in love with it from the start. Fly fishing at its core is so it's just the experience of it all, of like getting out in nature, pursuing something, and like being wild again in a wild place. That's what I love about it most. It's just an escape to, for me, try to like find my true self or get closer to that. My favorite species of trout would definitely be the brown trout. Just love how aggressive they are. I refer to him as the linebacker of the trout family. You know, the fact that you can throw meat, throw big flies, and you'll have a good chance of luring a big brown trout off the bottom or off of some like nasty little undergrowth, whatever, and they'll come out of there and give you the fight of your life. So that's always been one of my favorites, and love the brown trout.
Fly fishing was a bit of a surprise for me. It's one of those things that I never thought that I would really get involved with. Whenever I thought of fly fishing, I associated it with just a bunch of rich yuppies out there making life a lot more difficult than it needed to be. I come from a spin fishing background, that's for sure. I grew up tournament bass fishing my whole life. I fished since I was tournament bass fishing since I was tiny. I remember even being able to fish late night, like Monday night tournaments with my dad if I promised I would wake up for school in the morning, and this is like elementary school. And I never thought I'd be a fly fisherman. I knew some buddies that had fly fished before, and anytime they had ever mentioned it, I'd always shrugged it off and told them I didn't need it. And at this point I was bass fishing a number of days throughout the week, and that was kind of the only thing on my mind, and it was very competitive for me. The bass fishing side of things was, and I'd always tell them, nah, y'all can go out there and do your thing, I'm alright. And I'd been on a backpacking trip with a buddy, and actually a group of friends, and a buddy and I decided to stay back, and he wanted to fish this river in North Carolina where we were backpacking, and we had an extra rod, and I had already committed. I told him that if we went up there and we were hiking in this area, that I'd give fly fishing a shot. And so we got done with our backpacking trip, and we took an evening to fish, and we caught a lot of fish. They're definitely different beasts, fly fishing and spin fishing, and definitely much more challenging. And the first fish that I had caught on a fly rod was a much different experience than anything I'd ever experienced bass fishing. The fight was much more personal. The work you had to put into it to get there was different. Not that you don't work to find the bass and things like that, but the experience and the immersion that you had to go through in order to catch this fish was much different. And ever since that trip, it was kind of game over. I still bass fish from time to time, but it is very limited. The number of days that I bass fish are nowhere near anything. I mean, in the last year I've probably only bass fished 3 times, and the amount of times that I fly fished outnumbers that greatly. Fly fishing at its core for me is, I guess an escape, a place of being able to have a clear head. Fly fishing can be difficult at times. It can be tough, but even in that tough time and trying to figure out what pattern to throw, or trying to figure out how to target these fish, there's this place of clarity.
When I first started fly fishing, I went to a private water up in North Georgia because my dad knew the fellow who owned it, and he pretty much invited me to come up there. And I just started off the same way everybody else did. I went on a guide trip, and I had somebody show me sort of what to do, and I was just sort of put out on my own to struggle through it and try to figure out all the immense ways to fly fish and all the ways you can totally mess it up and get frustrated. I've fished a lot, and I've really never experienced anything like fly fishing prior to when I was first introduced to it. And when I first was shown what fly fishing is, it was one, the sort of technique and the skill and the drive that you have to have, and the patience you have to have towards the sport.
and then also like you have to put in all this work and all this technique that you have to practice and refine in order to be better. And then finally, when you put in all that work, at the very end of the day, you get to catch this like magnificently beautiful fish that's just been like so perfectly created for the environment that it's in. You know, just like the way the fins are shaped and the way they're colored so that they blend in with the bottom, so they just totally disappear as soon as you release them back into the creek. Fly fishing just, it's my place of rest, of sort of just being able to be 100% me and be able to be 100% removed from any other like stresses or worries that I have going on back in the real world. And it's really good. It's what I need, and I crave it when things get rough or things get difficult. And I think that's what it is for a lot of people, because it's not just the act of like going to catch the fish. It's not the fish that give me the rescue. It's not the fish that give me, you know, the sense of, oh, everything's going to be okay. It's the sense that I get to go into these magnificent places and catch the fish and realize that the fish is part of the bigger picture. It's part of all the creation that has been given to us by the Lord, so that we can use these places to see Him through it.